Hey, welcome to the show, Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, aka Shorty. And this is a show for those within the real estate industry wanting to lead and grow their real estate business. It's a series of interviews that we conduct for those within the industry. So we're finding out what those leaders are within the industry, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are their strategies, and how to become the leaders and the growers within the industry. But also it's an interview series with those outside of the industry. I'm always a big believer of looking at a whole different part of the pie rather than just focusing on one part of the pie. Because what it does, it allows you to have a different perspective, allows you to get snippets or golden nuggets from those outside of the industry that can look into the industry and go, there's a different perspective. And so I encourage you to reach out to the guests. I encourage you to lean into these series to find out how can these pieces of information, experiences, stories help you lead and grow your real estate business. And before we get underway with our latest episode, just a little shout out to these amazing crew at Magic Mind. Magic Mind has been it's a productivity hit in the bottle. I've been using these supplementations now for a number of weeks, and the clarity, the focus, and the performance that I've been getting from these nutrients in a bottle. They've got amazing vitamins, amazing minerals. They've got a bunch of mushrooms in there as well. It's a great productivity hack that I've been using every single day. So if you want to try it out, head on over to www.magicmind.com/James Short, and you'll be able to get amazing discounts when you subscribe and when you try the product. And at the checkout, simply add in James Short 20 to get your discount. So head on over, Magic Mind, productivity in a bottle. Oh, I love it. Now on with the show. And welcome to another edition. I'm excited to have a legend, a superstar, good friend. Oh, he's a mover and a shaker, Denis Preston. Denis is a positive psychologist that helps real estate groups add another essential strategy to grow their business with new insights on all future candidates. That is, their hidden subconscious strengths that drive up to 95% of candidates' behavior. Oh, he is absolutely incredible. He is from True Colors People Solutions, and he's from the research of 3 eminent psychologists. Denis has developed a scientific hiring tool using statistical analysis for his own financial services, UNAC. This was responsible for finding A-class people for key roles such as sales, which in turn resulted in exponential growth, productivity, and profitability. Julie Bowden, his partner, and Denis developed the Select Hire platform, providing SMEs access to an in-house platform, enabling them to hire with more certainty. HR can benchmark signature strength scores of their best people in all roles. By simply logging into the platform, comparisons can be made between candidates and internal role model champions or industry champions. Denis, honor and a privilege to have you on the show, mate. Welcome.
Thank you, James. Absolute pleasure to catch up.
Fantastic. Now, mate, you've been doing this for a while now, but I want to go back to those beginnings. You're, and we talked briefly before we press record about your fighting weight back in the day. You used to play rugby. Give us who did you used to play for, and how long did that go for?
I played with the mighty St. George Dragons. I was privileged enough to grow up watching them win 11 premierships in a row, and started playing first grade for St. George. I was 20 years old, and I played in the last winning championship team, which is still a world record in football all over the world. Also, I had the inglorious option that I played in the first losing team after then became the champion teams, and they won 4 out of the next 5 championships. But I was fortunate as well. The Professional Rugby League gave me the opportunity to go to uni in New South Wales, and I studied for 7 years there and studied while I played football. And I studied accounting, marketing, psychology, and taxation strategies, which I started my first business when I was at the uni, and it was in taxation strategies for professional sports people and for high net worth people like surgeons and doctors and pharmacists and entrepreneurs. So I've had a wonderful life, and I've probably developed about 10 businesses in the last 30 odd years. And in that time frame as well, I started this business that I'm now working with, and we've got lots of ASX listed companies around Australia and some in America and some in the UK that use our systems. We have an online system that you won't hire or interview a client until they see the results of the profiles.
Fantastic. And let's take us back to then your journey on how you came across this unique profiling system. How did that come about?
I was so fortunate because I was studying full-time at uni. I started studying psychology, and then I got involved with Penn State University in America, in Pennsylvania, and they had a new approach to finding salespeople. My biggest problem with my professional business that I had, hiring people to consult to the groups of accountants, say, or there might have been tea companies, was that I couldn't find great salespeople. And I consciously wasn't sure what a great salesperson was. So through Penn State, I did a 3-year degree in positive psychology. And during that, they released, they'd been doing a 2-year trial in the US with an insurance group. And they'd profiled 5,000 to 10,000 people a year for 2 years.
Wow.
Out of that, they identified the top 10% of salespeople in North America in insurance, which is a tough field, and it was cold calling, which is a tough world. And those the system they developed was 65 questions. They identified things like high productivity, high ability to overcome challenges, high abilities to set goals and achieve them, to be optimists, not pessimists, and people that were really great prospectors. And one of the keys to the exercise was to find a lot of people with low kinesthetic or emotional sensitivity style scores. So I did the course, and then they put the software system on the market in America. And I paid $50,000 US 20 years ago to buy the system. I didn't have to do the course because I was already doing it and done it. And my first batch of profiles of 10, I got 2 superstars. Now, I thought consciously when I saw the 2 candidates that they selected that I wasn't going to hire them. They were different to me completely, and I won't go into the detail of why, but the learning was they knew how to find them, I didn't. So if they could master it, so I bought the system. I got back and I told my partners at the time that we just spent 50,000 US on a new system, and they weren't real happy. At that next board meeting, they said that's ridiculous, because they didn't believe in subconscious identification of strengths, and they didn't do the study. They didn't understand what I was really delving with, is what drives about 95% of people's behaviours. So I said to them, don't worry about it. I'll pay for it out of my own cash, and I'll keep it. And so 20 years ago, I kept it, sold the business about 15 years ago, and they then wanted it. When I sold the business, they wanted to sell it off as an asset. And I said, well, hold on, remember, I'm the guy that paid for it. So I've kept it and I've built a wonderful business around it. I've got about 30 to 40 great clients that every day of the week they're putting through profiles, and I'm waking up each morning looking at 5 or 10 profiles and helping people with just a simple email, yes or no. I have lots of clients that are very comfortable if I read the profile and then show them why they're a good candidate to interview and hire. So it's been a wonderful journey. When I first started it, I started with a sales team of about 40 professional services style people, accountants, lawyers, IT people as well. And within 7 years, we brought in over 200 with the system. Wow. They were all in the top 10% of salespeople in financial services. I've then turned that around and applied it to about five different industries, including real estate. Fantastic. And real estate people, when they see how Abigail is the champion and why she works, she's got a fantastic profile, which unfortunately, when we first started helping a real estate group in South Australia, we found Abigail in the second batch of 10 people we profiled. And Abigail was already a superstar in South Australia, and we have been comparing and measuring real estate candidates against her now for over 12 years.
Wow. And so let's unpack that for a minute. So you've got a champion that you've profiled, i.e. Abigail. And so now what happens is that real estate groups come to you and they've got a bunch of candidates that they want profiled, and you benchmark these results against Abigail's results. So what is it about Abigail that sets her apart as a champion?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's 15 subconscious strengths that we measure, and I'll rattle off how good Abigail is. When I see this sort of result, I get very excited. And I'm fairly cheeky with my clients. I send them an email and I say, could you interview this candidate this afternoon and start them on Monday? And so on Saturday and Sunday, we're sending emails to real estate people advising them to interview people today, tomorrow, or Monday and start them straight away. But Abigail is extraordinary. Abigail is the sort of person that's studying all her life. She's growing in intelligence every day of the week, but she's got kind of, in rugby league terms, it's the spine of the team. Well, Abigail has the strengths that we look for in all great salespeople, including real estate salespeople. Now, Abigail, her productivity, her ability to complete steps, processes, systems, and goals and targets is 10 out of 10. So when you get, this means that Abigail just looks at work every day of the week, every moment of the week, and she's in high production, high productivity mode all the time. And she's a wonderful athlete. She's a wonderful student. She's a 10 out of 10 just in about everything that she does. She's big picture, so she knows the strategies that will work, and she delegates all the all factors in her business to other people, and she knows the 7 areas in her business that she focuses on, and she stays in those zones. She's an externally referenced person. Now, we break groups of people down into externally referenced people. Abigail is, when we profile her clients, she's built extraordinary relationships with them. Abigail is a deep researcher. She doesn't make assumptions without the facts or the truth. She also does statistical analysis. Abigail was the first person we helped build a team of 10 salespeople like her, because she believed in this statistical analysis that I'm going through here in the spreadsheet. So Abigail is supported by the statistical we give her on candidates, and she won't hire or interview anyone that doesn't measure up to, say, about early 80s, 81, 82, 85. And we talk about the 80 to 95 range as the critical area that we will find candidates for her. She's also shown tremendous initiative. She earned income before age 20, which is one of Dr. Stanley's, the Millionaire Next Door's principles. She made income and started saving when she was 12 years old, which is something that is an indicator of high self-initiative and can-do attitude. She's got a 10 out of 10 score in overcoming challenges, problems, anxieties, and adversities. As soon as Abigail has a challenge, she goes into action mode. And I know in your world where you're helping people with goal setting and goal achieving, taking action quickly is got to make sure you've got the right solution. But Abigail is the sort of person that finds solutions quickly and takes actions to solve everything quickly. She's a dynamo, an absolute dynamo. She's also very strong in setting goals. You'd love her approach to setting goals and achieve them. She does it on a daily basis and a weekly basis, and she does it because she's so strong in emotions and pictures, in visual communication. She knows that she has to do it and see it to achieve it. So on her goal-setting side, she's 7 out of 10, but she's just improving every year as she's growing. So overall, her communication style is fantastic. She's an 8 on kinesthetic, 10 out of 10 on visual, and she's only a 5 out of 10 on auditory communication, but she's a great person with questions, and we use the MP system. Questions are the answers. He uses the question techniques that you and I know from NLP. Asking the right questions is the solution to her. She never presumes. She asks the right questions and then looks for the solution. She's an 87 out of 100. Wow. She's just a beautiful for us as an advertisement for what we do. When we found her, I was flabbergasted because we were looking at some profiles coming in at 50, 60, low 70s. 70 to 80% of our profiles are in the 40s, 50s, 60s, low 70s.
Yeah, wow.
So I'll give you an example. When we found Abigail, we profiled 100 real estate candidates over a period of about 4 months, and we only found 10 people, 10%, that we could introduce to the agency in Adelaide. But those 10 people working with Abigail have built one of the most highly productive teams, a bit similar to what happened to my company, UNAC, when I started using this system 20 years ago. We built a team of over 200 people like Abigail. And I've done a similar thing with Australia's fastest growing accounting group in Australia, Brett Kelly's group, the Kelly Accounting. And he's employed in the last 12 years over 300 people like Abigail. And sure, we've got to profile lots of people to find them, but the investment in finding them, Brett Kelly thinks that we introduce people that are 5 to 10 times active in a team led by someone like Abigail.
Right.
So Brett Kelly's got about 40 teams around Australia and now overseas in America and Asia and the UK. And he's got people like Abigail as his team leaders. Now, can you imagine people that are in a productive zone that are producing 5 or 10 times the average that people are producing in other areas?
Phenomenal. So let's unpack that for a second. So going through the questionnaire, 65 questions will allow the recipient to actually have an understanding of these strengths finders. And so now we've got, for example, you use the case study of Abigail. Have a really easy reference point, because I see so many business owners, particularly in the real estate space, they've got their list of questions that they go through in the interview, but it's still based on an emotional response. How the candidate has made the either the manager or the owner feel in that series of questions. Where here now we've got a champion, i.e. Abigail, where we can benchmark based on these interviews. And even as you've suggested, before you get to the interview stage, that you can benchmark, you can do these profiles. And this is where, for example, you mentioned Brett Kelly, and I heard you on the podcast with being interviewed by Brett. Just phenomenal. Like he speaks so highly of you guys, you and Jules, to actually just to has as a go-to place of before any interview happens is that they got to get profiled. So for example, the question I've got for you, utilizing this in the real estate space, and you've worked with the guys in South Australia and many other real estate groups, how much time will this save in the recruitment process? Hey guys, just a little side note here. How's it going? Are you on track this year? I know that sometimes this part of the year we can feel like we're in a bit of a grind, a bit of in the trenches. Are you on track from the original plans that you set out for the rest of this year? What I've realized is that with this time of year, we get so distracted and we've got trying to chase so many shiny balls and go down so many rabbit holes. And that's why I created a program called the 90. It's a framework that actually allows you to achieve more in 90 days than ever before. Some of the feedback that we've got from some of the people that have used the process, the 90, is that they've achieved more in 90 days than the whole previous year. So if you'd like to have the tools, have the techniques, have the framework on the 90, so you and your team can achieve more in 90 days than ever before. What it does, it impacts you of how to get clear, what you need to do, and who you need to be to show up in order to achieve the things you want to achieve over the next 90 days. Simply head over to jamesshort.com.au, click on join the waitlist, fill in your details, and one of the team members will be in touch and take you through the 90 framework. On with the show.
That's a great question. And we do an analysis. So my background is in accounting and statistical analysis. I got distinctions in statistical analysis at Uni in New South Wales. And I've got a saying that if you don't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yep.
And I know that. In fact, when I was playing rugby league with St George, we had one of the great executive directors, Frank Facer. And Frank Facer used to go looking all over the world for the best rugby league players. And he went to South Africa and got great wingers, and he went to Fiji and got great front rowers and second rowers, and he went to the UK and got great forwards. He was the only one doing it. But his perspective, so we need to find great entrepreneurs that can have a perspective like Brett Kelly, like the people like Abigail in South Australia. We've got about 40 people like that build teams like with the champions. So I suppose the starting point is we will be quite happy to give complementary profiles to build a champion structure inside any of the real estate businesses that think that this is a great way to do it. So it's a kind of a bit of a learning curve. They have to understand all the 15 subconscious strengths like you and I have when we did our NLP training. Positive psychology is the leading psychology in the world if you want to find high-performing people. So we're quite happy to give your clients a package valued at about $1,000, and it includes a bunch of profiles, the reports that we do. See, we compare everybody against Abigail. So we know from the starting point, and a lot of people hire in real estate without really knowing the subconscious strengths. And as you know, the subconscious strengths drive the majority of the behaviours. So happy to give away as many packages as need to. They're valued at about 1,000. There's in that there's 5 to 7 profiles. There's 2 to 3 reports, and I'm happy to do the debriefing on Zoom and help people to get started. I would virtually guarantee that if they're happy to profile 5, 10, 20, 30 people over time, they will be surprised at how high the quality is. They'll be obviously convinced over time, never hire without profiling. If you don't measure the candidates in the areas that we've mentioned before you interview, you don't know who you are listening to. The fascinating thing is most people hire people like themselves.
Yes, very true.
Yeah, they do. They clone their own behaviours by the people they hire. We don't clone any behaviours, we just measure them. So I will never recommend I just recommended in the last few days some accounting people in Manila, and we profiled 10 people. We found 2 superstars, and all I did was send an email to the owners of that business over there, and I said, please interview these 2 people now, because they won't be on the market next week because they're too good. And the scores were 85 and 89. And this came in, I think it was on Wednesday, and by Friday they were working with those people. Fantastic. Now, it's that sort of world. They have to take action, and I know that you help people take action, but as soon as we find the right measurements for a candidate, we recommend hiring.
Yeah, so true. And this is what I love, because it's, you can actually find yes, we've got the Abigail in the sales component within your real estate office, but you can also have a champion of a property manager or an admin assistant and so forth. And you can actually create your own modeling system and your own champions within your own organization based from your current team and current structure. And then when you're going out and further recruiting, you can actually use these champions in as a benchmark to those other roles. So here's a question for you, Dennis, is you might have a team already of, say, 10 or 20 staff, and you've just had this realization, oh my goodness, we've got to get Dennis in and start to doing the profiling. And you soon realize that there are some performers within your team that need some serious work because they're maybe not up to where the benchmark is. Can these strategies, can these behaviors be taught? Can people actually improve their score by learning specific strategies and changing the way they do things?
Yeah, yes, they can. And obviously, lots of the areas that we're profiling, and with your wonderful experience in NLP and positive psychology, we can identify, for example, that someone like I got a profile in yesterday, and the optimism score was 1 out of 10.
Whoa.
And the owner of the business says, wow, what does that mean? And I said, well, fundamentally, that person is borderline pessimist, drifting back into occasionally optimism. But the great news is, as you know and I know, is that you can build optimism.
Yep.
So Dr. Stanley was the first person that started analysing millionaires, fast-growing millionaires in America. And he's got 10 examples of ways to grow optimism. Dr. Seligman, the father of positive psychology in North America, has got 15 exercises that we can do and you can do to help people grow their optimism. So, and the great thing is most people who are pessimists don't think they can be optimists.
That's right.
And as you know, there's great books. There's a book called Positivity by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, and she's the #1 positive psychologist in the world in ways to break through. And in my mantra with my clients, and I'm sure you're in this zone most of the time as well, we promise to break through and find solutions to all the challenges, problems, anxieties, and adversities that people are faced with. So a pessimist doesn't have to stay a pessimist all their life. We can, and we've done it over time. And that's what I said to the client the other day with the 1 optimism score that came through. We'll start this program on an optimistic journey, and they will learn the 15 exercises. They will be someone we refer to you as well, James, because you're a specialist in that area and have been, and you know how effective it can be. So we don't, with low scores, hack them, find solutions. And in your world, you are the ideal purpose for us to refer them to you and for you to help them through those challenges. Does it work every time? There's an element of people that won't take our advice. I'm not sure what that's all about, but during the pandemic, the pessimists started to get more and more negative, and we weren't able to help a lot of people. However, the optimists still were optimistic, and they thrived during the pandemic. So it's ways and means with your skills and our skills, we can help you identify problems and you'll help them solve the problem.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think the question I want to pose to those listeners is that recruiting and finding the right team members it can be expensive. It can be expensive on finding the wrong team members. So, because the cost of training, the cost of onboarding, the cost of getting to where you think they need to be, we can always, but we'll just give them another month. So I guess what are you prepared to invest into getting it right? And this is where identifying up front those candidates that do reach that score. So you've got straight off the bat where this scientific approach really helps. So I guess what are you willing to invest in, and what's the return you're prepared to make in relations to finding the right people? So important, so important. Denis, on our show, we have a 60-second quiz to find out a little bit more about the guest. Are you willing to play?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite movie?
Last Tango in Paris.
Fantastic. What's your favorite food?
Because of the actor.
What's your favorite food?
I'm a borderline vegetarian. So I love curries, I love Asian foods, and I love, because I've just been on the ketonic diet for 10 months and lost 12 kilos, I'm in love with vegetables and fruits.
Fantastic. What's your favorite holiday destination?
One of the things I did when I was running my business was, and which is amazing, I used to go overseas 3 times a year to conferences, and I did it for 30 years. Well, I've traveled to 100 different destinations around the world, but the one I loved the most was South Africa and going to a games park. And I lived in a tree house for 7 days and watched animals. We had a fellow downstairs with a gun to keep him from coming up, but I'm planning on going back to Africa probably every year for the rest of my life.
Fantastic. And what's your morning routine? Do you have a morning routine?
Up early. I go to bed. We live on a farm just outside of Camden. It's quiet. I sleep from 10 a.m. till about 6 a.m. 10 p.m. to about 6 a.m. I'm having things like fruit and yogurt for breakfast. I'll be walking by 7 o'clock for maybe 40 to 50 minutes every morning. Sometimes if I've got to go to the city, I'll have to miss that one. So my morning routine is, and I usually meditate. If I've got a big event on, I'll go into meditation about 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. I use a meditation process from Brahma Kumaris. I have a yogi who's been my teacher for about 20 years. Her name is B.K. Jayanti, and she's one of the leading minds in the world. She's been meditating since she was about 7 years old.
Wow.
And she's now in her 90s. And she's just, whenever I have a problem, I go into the meditative state, and I probably meditate once or twice a day. If I have a big problem with a client that I can't quite solve yet, I have a bit of a saying that impossible, just take a little bit longer. You're going to have to give me a little bit more time before I can find or help you find the solution or help you find the person that helped you, and that including people like you, obviously, James. So
Fantastic.
my days, I'm in flow most of the time. I am happy to say that I'm in a job that I just love every day, the work I do. Great. And how many people I can help each day.
Yeah, fantastic. And do you have an evening routine?
Evening, I relax. I'm an avid reader still. I still read 1 or 2 books a week, and I love biographies. I'm just reading again. I've read a lot of sports biographies. I love great sports people and how they do it. I'm reading about the Scottish comedian that's got Parkinson's disease, and he's in his 70s. And you know the person I'm probably talking about, one of the funniest guys in history. Swears too much for me. He does explain in his book why he swears a lot. So I love learning. I've got a saying, I love learning from people who've mastered things. And he's mastered how to be funny, and he has some of the funniest jokes that have ever been released. One of them is quite filthy, but he captivated Parkinson on Parkinson's TV show, and it got the highest rating ever because the joke was so funny. So I love people like Wayne Bennett, the footy coach. I love, and I reread lots of books. One of my marketing gurus is Jay Abrahams, and I read his book, or I read the chapters of his book if a client of mine has got a marketing problem. We start there, Jay, because Jay Abrahams started studying marketing in North America, as you know, when he was 12 years old. He couldn't go to college. His family was poor, and he read books about all the great marketing people in North America.
Fantastic.
And he stole ideas. He said, the good thing about a library is you can steal it and not get convicted. So
Very true. Very true.
he's been taking. So I read a lot in the evenings.
Nice. Nice.
We I would be reading maybe from 7 to 9, and sometimes, and I'm writing a book myself at the moment with all the wonderful experiences I've been through in my life.
Wonderful. And if you would have, if you could choose 5 inspirational people to have dinner with, they could be dead or alive, who would they be?
Could be dead or alive. Well, Muhammad Ali would be one of them, because anyone that's that big that can glide like a butterfly, and I love the way he handled racism in North America, which was amazing. So to be him, I'd invite Brett Kelly, because Brett Kelly's an avid reader, and I'd ask Brett what are all the books he's read in the last year. So, and I'd write them down and I'd get them and read them. I'd probably write. I'd invite Robert Kelly, the guy that's built the big insurance group.
Yep.
I'd probably write the 2 gurus that built Atlassian, the software company. When they first started, they used my system for about 2 years, but then they dropped me. Really hurt me a lot, because they found another system in America which is not as good. And again, the HR guy they put on loved that system, and I've been pitching to them every year ever since. And I'm still going to keep pitching to them till I get them back.
Fantastic.
Probably the tennis player that retired early, Australian tennis player that retired last year or the year before, because I liked the way she made the decision that she'd become famous. She won Wimbledon. She won the Australian Tennis Championship. Wanted to build a family.
Yep.
You know the person I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
and I do I'd probably invite Wayne Bennett, the coach,
Yep.
because being a St George fan, I asked him at one time, I did have dinner with him, and I asked him, how did you score all those tries? And he said, before our players go onto the field, we had 8 set moves that the other team didn't have. And 8 set moves that they waited and waited for the grand final. Scored 6 tries with them. And he told me the whole 8. So I know the 8 moves that can beat a team, and he's using it and he'll give them to South next year as well. So that there's a bonus there in that contract he signed with South.
So good. And if you were a prime minister for the day, what's one thing that you would change?
I would fix the problem of people living on the streets. I don't think there's any country in the world that should allow that to happen. You know, especially when you can build. There are models in Europe where they're building low-cost houses for people living on the streets, and they're solving the problem. You look at how much money I read an article the other day. There's a politician in Australia that's got a writer writing his scripts for $650,000 a year. Now, how dare he hire someone? That's about $150,000 job. But there's so much waste in politics in Australia. I would fix the problem where the waste money is going, and fix the problem with people living on the streets, especially children, especially the 12 to 20-year-olds, and get them into houses, get them into education, and get them into the system. Unfortunately, one of my grandsons went through that, and he's now in a hospital bordering on. So we've seen in our family what's happened to people that live on the streets and don't get assimilated.
Yeah. And so the final question is, what's your best piece of advice?
I love that one. What you don't measure, you don't have the right to manage. So if you've got a lousy permanency rate and loyalty rate with staff, it's because you're not measuring them. And I also love that saying of the guy that invented the McDonald's system. You have to have a hiring system that is a system of integrated components that work in an absolutely predictable way. And if you don't know who your champions are in your teams, you don't deserve to be able to ever hire people like them, because you won't know who they are. You'll just keep hiring people that like you.
Yeah,
so
very true.
I love those two. System of integrated components, that's McDonald's maxim. System of integrated components that work in an absolutely predictable way. And if you don't measure a problem in your business, I've seen lots of business, every time someone leaves after 1 month, if they're on 100,000, they just lost $8,000.
Yep.
So can they afford to, and we can hire really great people for up to $5,000. So you can fix the problem. So those two things, everything you measure, you can manage. And I love the definition of the systems.
Fantastic. And so, Denis, how can people find out more about the platform, about the profiling? Where should they go? How can they reach you?
Through my email, which is Denis with one N at truecolourspeoplesolutions.com.au. I know it's a long one, but it's worth it. And True Colours are the people like Abigail. That's what we're looking for. And or on my mobile 0418 640 368.
Fantastic. Denis,
hopefully through yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Denis, really appreciate your expertise, your knowledge, and your energy today. Thank you for being part of the show.
Wonderful. And thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working with you in any way we can, James.
Wonderful.